The Dino Bravo episode of The Dark Side of the Ring is probably the most interesting one that they will do the entire year. Outside of I know a lot of people are going to be really perturbed by the Jimmy Snuka or the Chris Benoit stories, but the Dino Bravo story is a movie. Okay, it is a movie. You had a guy who was a star wrestler in the 70s and 80s, working in the independent circuit in Montreal, who then kind of, I guess you could say, quote unquote, makes it big. It goes to the World Wrestling Federation, makes a lot of money there, but walks away from it very fairly young. He was 44. He walked away, and then turned to organized crime. It became like an enforcer and tobacco smuggler, and ends up getting just killed in straight up Bugsy Siegel style murder in his own goddamn living room. It's the craziest story that they probably ever cover because, for starters, nobody knows what the hell happened, but there is some general ideas of what happened to Dino Bravo. So in this video, we're going to talk about the Dark Side of the Ring, obviously, and then we're going to look into because there's not a lot of details in what actually happened with Dino Bravo. We're going to look into what took place as far as the cigarette smuggling. Because I was kind of surprised that I heard that people will get killed over cigarette smuggling, but it was a big deal in Canada at the time. So we're going to go through McLean's article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to go through it just to give you a general idea of how big cigarette smuggling was in Canada at the time. And so let's get into the Dark Side of the Ring. So they tell the story of basically of International Wrestling, which is a Montreal-based promotion in the early 80s. The promotion where Rick Martel came from, the Rougeaus, Dino Bravo, and I think they called him Tonga, but I think it might have been Haku. That's how everybody would know him. And that Dino Bravo was actually the booker and the co-owner of this promotion. He always booked himself to be the top star. So he was the top star of his own promotion. The story was similar to the Stampede Wrestling story. That if you ever heard the Stampede Wrestling story of the Hearts, it's very similar. Dino Bravo owned this promotion. He booked himself to be the top guy. Vince McMahon came in with his satchels of money, offered to buy Dino Bravo out and all this type of stuff. Dino said nah. He wanted a match with Hogan. This is where you get the Dino versus Hogan was supposed to happen, and then Vince was worried that Bravo might have been a little too over in Montreal and just said forget it. We're not going to put Hogan in that situation. The WWF backs out of the match. This was in 1985, I believe. So Hulkamania had really just kind of picked up. And since, they backed out, Dino is pretty sour on the WWF. And he decides he's going to run competition. So he's not going to sell out. He's going to run competition events. Of course, he gets his ass kicked. Then his talent gets bought out from under him. The Rougeaus leave. Rick Martel leaves. Haku leaves. And in 1986, he's beginning to lose a lot of money. And now he's, not sure what he's going to do with his future. And it says that he joined the WWF in 1987 with a $300,000 guaranteed contract, which sounds absolutely fucking insane. Okay? That's fucking insane. For starters, I do not believe this contract. I'm sorry. I do not believe it. I do not believe Vince McMahon gave Dino Bravo $300,000. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. Okay? He gave him a lot of money probably. But $300,000, I do not believe that. That would be insane. Okay? You talk about overpaying. Look, Vince McMahon just gave, I think, Gallows and Anderson $750,000 a piece. He overpaid for those guys. I don't care what anybody says. Them motherfuckers are not worth $1.5 million. They're not. Not together, no. Okay? Maybe with AJ Styles, they're worth $1.5 million, but not just the two of them. Now, maybe this is a thing where Vince is just kind of compensating, but I can kind of believe it. Maybe Vince is compensating for putting the guy out of business. He gave the guy a little bit more money than he really needs because he put the guy out of business. Maybe that was the case. But then they says, Vince kind of does what Vince does, which is he starts making changes to the characters, and he made Dino Bravo, who is essentially the Bruno Sammartino of Canada, the big hulking Italian, muscle man, that he, dyed his hair blonde and, put him in a sparkly suit and a sparkly cape. and made him a cartoon character. And he said that Dino was kind of embarrassed by this, and I guess that I can understand that. I can understand, kind of being told you have to change your look. That sucks. But considering nobody knew who, like, look, I was a kid in 1987. I didn't give a shit about Dino Bravo. I didn't give a shit about Dino Bravo. I didn't notice when he was there. I didn't notice when he was gone. Okay, I just didn't care. And to be quite honest, if I didn't really look into this story again, I probably still wouldn't care. He's just one of those guys who came and went. It's like, worrying about Damien Demento. And I know like a lot of people, it's kind of rude and it's kind of fucked up. But to be quite honest, if you don't stand out, even when I was a kid, I didn't pay that much attention to you. And Dino Bravo isn't a guy I cared that much about. So, I don't know what his upside would have been if they'd have kept his hair black. Who knows? But they told the truth. Dino Bravo couldn't really cut a promo because he spoke with broken English. I think that in Quebec, where he's from, French is actually the native language. So you have, because I think Kevin Owens also speaks French and Sami Zayn speaks French, and they're all from Montreal. And he was also older. That he was, he wasn't in top star shape anymore. That he was in his early 30s or his late 20s, early 30s when he was the top star in international wrestling. And when he moved to the WWF, he was in his mid to late 30s and early 40s. And he was essentially a job guy. He came in to do a bunch of jobs, and his contract expired 6 years later. So in 1992, he leaves. And this is where we get into some of the craziest parts of the story of the WWF, of the story. It's his post WWF stuff. Okay, so Dino Bravo has no experience outside of wrestling. He's been wrestling his whole adult life, and his career spans for 22 years, and now his career is over. And it says that his he's got an uncle that is connected into the mob. His uncle is Vic Controni, who is apparently the godfather of Montreal. He's also a former wrestler, and this kind of opens up the door for Dino Bravo to be sort of an enforcer for the mob. So he's a debt collector, quote unquote. It gives you the idea of Rocky Balboa. So you have this Rocky like Dino Bravo, this hulking figure throwing guys around and pushing guys over, and just being like the big muscly guy, and that was like insane. And he did this for a while, and then he gets into cigarette smuggling. Apparently, okay, they said that these things were found in his house. I couldn't find a news article that tied it connectly to his house, but there was a news article that connects directly to the day he was actually killed. So let's go into that, and then we'll come back and talk about some of the other things that were going on. So this is the article by the Ottawa Citizen, dated March 12th, 1993. This details the initial reports coming out of the Dino Bravo murder. So let's go through this. Laval, Quebec. Dino Bravo, a wrestling star once billed as the world's strongest man, was killed in a hail of gunfire early Thursday as he sat in front of his TV. 17 empty shell casings from two different weapons, a 380 and a 22 caliber gun, littered the floor of the room near the body of the former World Wrestling Federation star, said Sergeant Gaby LaChapelle of the Laval Police. Bravo's wife found the wrestler's body in an armchair when she returned to their luxurious home after midnight. He was shot in the head, said LaChapelle. There were no signs of a struggle, robbery, or forced entrance to the house. He was shot more than twice, but for now, it's impossible to say how many times. Again, this was before they did the autopsy and all that type of stuff. Now we know how many times he was shot. We'll have the result after the autopsy. Right now, we don't have any motive or suspects, LaChapelle said. Bravo, whose real name was Adolfo Bresciano, was 44. He was a local wrestling hero for years before joining the U.S. circuit. The father of a 6-year-old daughter, he retired from wrestling 3 months ago after 22 years in the ring. Bravo started on the Quebec-based Grand Prix circuit in 1971 on an encouragement from his cousin, who fought under the name Gino Brito. Gino Brito is in the documentary. Trained by former stars Brito, Edouard Carpentier, and Luigi Machigara, Bravo's popularity rocketed with his good looks and acrobatic style. He made his name performing with ring legends such as Killer Kowalski and Andre the Giant, who died recently in Paris after an illness. He was also part of the Italian Connection tag team group that included Brito, Bruno Sammartino, and Tony Parisi. Bravo changed his image when he jumped to the World Wrestling Federation in 1987. A slim, dark-haired, high-flying hero of the past, he dyed his hair blonde, bulked up to 255, and became what wrestling people call a heel, the villain who loses to the crowd favorites. That is not what a heel is, but that is what a jobber is. But yeah, this was the news report, and this was hard to find, man. This was really hard to find. But you can tell gangsters was involved. They left the guns behind. Like, come on, they daring the police to come find you out. You know, they left the guns. You didn't even take the guns with you. That's crazy. So after Dino Bravo was found killed, the police started doing a little bit looking into the organized crime angle of this whole ordeal, and they found that at least two mafia connected individuals in Dino Bravo's same neighborhood were killed around the same time, even though there was never any evidence of connecting all of these people together. And this is where they found the $55,000 in cigarettes that they found in Dino Bravo's house. And apparently there was some type of maybe a robbery of a truck or something like that. And this is where all of these cigarettes had come from that were stashed in Dino Bravo's house. And the Native Americans apparently were robbed or something to that effect. I found this really interesting that Rick Martel is supposedly one of the friends of Dino Bravo. He declined to participate in this documentary for a good reason. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police also declined to participate in this documentary, which makes you think that other police departments really shouldn't get involved with this stuff, especially after what they did to the police in Allentown, Pennsylvania. But they played an interview with Rick Martel going into who I guess was one of Dino Bravo's really good friends. And they played an interview of Rick Martel talking about the drug deals, and essentially that for I guess a small slice of Montreal, Dino Bravo was a really big cigarettes dealer, and he started making deals with cocaine dealers, and he made a deal with some cocaine guys for to leave them a warehouse or whatever of cigarettes, and they were supposed to go pick these things up, but it took them 3 days to do it, and the police found it and was watching it. So when they went to go pick this stuff up, apparently on the third day, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police were there, and everyone got arrested. And apparently these guys just kind of blamed Dino Bravo for this, and this was a supposed motive. And they said it was $400,000 worth of cigarettes that were, or you can just call it contraband. Contraband cigarettes were hauled out of this warehouse that were supposedly about to be sold to some guy, some cocaine dealer somewhere. And Rick Martel says he was told this right out of Dino Bravo's mouth. And so and I have no reason to doubt Rick Martel. He's not a guy I've ever known to be full of shit. So that's pretty crazy. But let's go into why cigarettes. Cigarettes are a really big deal, or were a really big deal in Canada. And let's talk about that a little bit, and then we'll come back and wrap this thing up. The story of Dino Bravo, it has a lot about cigarette bootlegging in it. So I found an article from Maclean's magazine, which is a Canadian magazine, from 1993, the same year Dino Bravo was killed. They had a cover story called "Of Smokes and Smugglers, Guns and Money Fueled an Illicit Trade." And it's about exactly the type of thing they were talking about in the Dark Side of the Ring. They're talking about illegal bootlegging of cigarettes, and how how profitable it is. And I'm not going to read this whole thing, but let's just look at some of these things. You talk about in the opening part. It discusses people, how much money you can possibly make bootlegging cigarettes. And it says a former soldier now makes the trip once a day and claims an income of $3,500 a week. But he is just a bit player in the vast $1 billion tobacco smuggling operation that is fueled by high cigarette taxes in Canada. Of course, high cigarette taxes, obviously, right? In fact, of the 7.6 billion cigarettes exported to the United States in 1992, police say 80% was smuggled back into Canada. While the federal government plans to step up its fight against the smugglers, the former soldier vows that he will continue to make the run. The run is the run means the trip back and forth between the United States and Canada where they bootlegging cigarettes. Um, and the guy said, the former says, what can they do? He says, everybody's getting into it, even the white people. Cigarette smuggling has been growing steadily since 1980 when Ottawa slapped the first series of stiff tax increases on cigarettes. As the price of cigarettes rose in Canada, so did the opportunity to earn money by bringing in this country cigarettes that had been legally exported to the United States where lower taxes prevail. In 1980, the price differential between a pack of Canadian cigarettes and a U.S. pack was about 26 cents. It is now about $4. In February 1992, the government attempted to stem the tide by charging an $8 export tax on each 200 cigarette carton. But 6 weeks later, the government relented under heavy lobbying from the tobacco industry and removed the tax. Since then, exports have surged, and contraband tobacco is now available in every major city in Canada. The Toronto-based investigative accounting firm of Lindquist, Ivy, McDonald, Baskerson Incorporated, which did a major report on the problem for the tobacco industry in 1992, estimated that more than 1 in 9 cigarettes smoked in Canada in 1991 was smuggled. Okay, so you see that this is a big problem in Canada. Well, this was a big problem. I'm not so sure how big of a problem it is today, but it was a pretty big problem. And who created the problem? Government. Yeah, sure it did. The government created the black market, and this is how we deal with it. And here's another little portion of the interview. The reserve is now dotted. The Akwesasne, which I guess is the natives, the name of the natives, reserve is now dotted with cigarette warehouses, with trucks, vans, cars come and go in steady stream. Even under the glare of the noon sun last week, dozens of vessels piled high with boxes of contraband cigarettes were crossing the river. Darian Bonaparte, a spokesman for the Akwesasne Band government, which I guess is the First Natives government, said that the illegal cigarette industry has become so extensive that it is boosting the reserve's economy. There are a lot of houses going up and marinas being built, said Bonaparte. Sometimes it seems as if everybody is into cigarette smuggling. Okay, so it wasn't just Dino Bravo and the Mafia and all of them. Everybody's into it. It was a big thing at the time. Okay, so smugglers of Akwesasne do not go far to unload their contraband cargo. The island portion of the Akwesasne or Akwesasne, whatever, lies about 1,200 feet from the Ontario mainland. According to the police, most of the shipments are timed to coincide with the arrivals of runners on the Ontario and Quebec mainland. Their trucks and cars are packed and driven to contacts in Montreal and Toronto and other Indian reserves, primarily the Six Nations Reserve just west of Hamilton, Ontario. The financial rewards are clearly worth the risk, according to native smugglers. A carton of 8 packs of 25 cigarettes can be bought in Canada for $15. It is resold for $28 or $4 a pack on the street. By comparison, a legal carton of Players Lights sold for $47 in stores last week in Toronto. That's amazing. You could get it for $28, and if you buy it legally in a store, it's $47. Only government creates this problem. I mean, we can talk about wrestling needs a union and all that bullshit, but come on, this is almost this is easy money, right? In fact, the Lindquist Group estimates that in 1991, the value of smuggled tobacco was more than $1 billion, and the federal and provincial governments had lost the same amount in potential tax revenues. Of course, that's all they care about. You got people getting killed over this stuff, but hey, as long as they just want their tax dollars. But this is just a little bit of telling us about the illegal cigarette business that was going on around 1993 when Dino Bravo was killed, and what he had potentially fallen into. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry run by several different groups and organizations. It seems to be just massive. Just really, really massive. Um, it's and here is. Let's read this part. The actual money being generated by illegal cigarette sales may be much higher, but because most estimates do not include U.S. brand cigarettes being smuggled into Canada, nor do they take into account the fact that the Akwesasne Mohawks have struck deals with U.S. manufacturers to produce their own brand of Canadian-style cigarettes, which are sold in smoke shops on Indian reserves, sold under the brand name DKs and Putters. The cigarettes are packaged to resemble Du Maurier and Players brands, and Canadian cigarette manufacturers do not like the competition. It affects brand loyalty, said Imperial's oh my god, that is a nightmarish French name. Oh shit. I gotta put my working boots on for this one. Descartier Descoteaux. Pronounce it at your own fucking peril, okay? And he said price is what drives the market. At the Six Nations Reserve, the owners of several smoke shops that have been established because of the smuggling trade say that people regularly travel hundreds of kilometers to buy large amounts of cigarettes, including native brands. One of the last week's customers was John Gray, a welder from nearby Paris, Ontario, who bought 3 cartons for $28. 3 cartons for $28. Now, if he'd had to buy 3 cartons at the $47 price range, that's nuts, right? He said, and Mr. Gray said, we pay too much tax already. And there you have it. So this just goes to show just how much they were the taxes, and the Canadians created this trade, with these fucking stupid ass taxes. If there's one thing that I will always, I try not to talk politics in these videos, I swear I do. But for fuck's sake, man, when you talk about a guy being killed because you made the goddamn industry so fucking lucrative by taxing the shit out of everybody, what could they do? Why would you not do it? Especially if you have to take care of, you have a large, income to replace. Why not replace it with going into illegal cigarettes? Why not? Give me one good reason why he shouldn't have did this other than the fact that he got him killed. He was making a grip before then. This brings us back to our $300,000 deal with Vince McMahon. It talked about a lot in the documentary that Dino Bravo lived a very lavish lifestyle. He bought new cars, he had a brand new house, and he had no way of really maintaining this thing after wrestling. So, of course, he went into organized crime. Why wouldn't he? This guy went from booking himself as the top guy, making the most money in the business in Montreal. He got I can't really, even though I do not believe the $300,000 figure, let's say it's true. Let's argue that it's true. He got a massive contract from Vince McMahon for $300,000, and he lasted for 6 years in the WWE. Made a lot of money. Even if he didn't do shit, he made a lot of money. Now he's got to replace that income. And this is classic, living beyond your means, thinking the money is never going to go away. Who knows what promises he were made. Maybe Vince told him, "Are you going to be the champion one day, pal?" Probably not likely. But he made a lot of money. There's no reason he should have ever needed to turn to organized crime. The only reason he probably would have is if he spent it all, which apparently he did. He went on a spending spree, buying all types of new stuff and living lavishly, and he blew all that money. Now, so you can tell that it's not a matter of people aren't paid enough. It's a matter of what they do with what they're paid. And Dino Bravo was an obvious, reaction. That's an obvious story with him, is that he made the money. He just didn't spend it correctly. He had a big family to take care of. Well, he didn't have a big family. He only had one child, as far as I know, to take care of. And this situation with these cigarettes would make him so much money, it could replace his wrestling gig. Like, that's insane. It's insane that people would think that and think that people would not do it. This is what happens when you tax people to death. You create a black market. So, but there was a lot of a little smaller ancillary issues that that I could have talked about, like Bravo, the heat between the kind of heat between the Rougeaus and Dino Bravo, as they thought they were, the Mountie in particular. Um, I don't want to know. I'm pretty sure it's Jacques Rougeau. I hope it's not Ray, because then I look like a fake wrestling fan. But the Mountie, the one that played the Mountie, which I'm pretty sure is Jacques Rougeau, talked about, he felt like he was being held down when Dino Bravo was the booker. And I don't know. I didn't know anything about this Montreal wrestling stuff until today. I mean, until the documentary happened. I mean, a lot of these territories are before my time. They just are. It might be fun to go back and look at them or something like that, but they were definitely before my time. And you have this guy who is just the man in his territory, and then you take him out of his territory, and it doesn't translate. I mean, this happens so often, and it continues to happen today. Like, there's this guy who on Twitter just said Chris Hero was at the top of his game. I'm like, fuck, Chris Hero? What the fuck? What the hell are you talking about? Like, it's 2020. Chris Hero is not the Chris Hero that you remember him having matches with CM Punk. No, it's not the same guy. And also, when WWE still today runs by the same practice of just hiring guys who have who make a name for themselves in a specific place, and then they bring them to the WWE and let's see if it can translate. Sometimes they change the guy completely, sometimes they don't. But very often they bring a guy in, they say, okay, let's see if you can translate to our fans and our audience. And sometimes it doesn't happen. And Dino Bravo was a situation where it didn't happen. They brought the guy in, they gave him blonde hair, but I mean, come on, is that really the end all be all of ruining the guy's career? Because Dusty Rhodes' hair wasn't really blonde, and neither was Ric Flair's, neither was Buddy Rogers. And so it's not really like people, he changed your hair color all of a sudden, you're a completely different person. It's like, no. But it was, maybe it just wasn't connecting with that audience. And I'm supposing that the Montreal company went under, so he just couldn't go back to it, and that's unfortunate. He didn't have any other options, because now he's an older talent, and he's not worth the same amount of money he would have been before. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that either, but that's just a basic figure. Like, the older you get in sports, the less you're worth. And is really unfortunate, but that's just kind of how it is. It's just harsh reality. But there's two more things, one or two more things I want to discuss here. His family. One, it was interesting that his wife's mom, what the hell did I get that from? His wife didn't keep anything. They said that his wife got rid of all of his wrestling stuff. She apparently she might have sold all his stuff, or she gave it away to friends. She probably sold a lot of it. It was probably worth something, and sold his gear and all that type of stuff. So he didn't keep anything, which is really interesting. Usually people like to keep stuff like that, just mementos. But I guess they had enough pictures and things like that they really didn't need it. But I'm also noted there's like another sort of underground market for people who buy wrestling paraphernalia and wrestling memorabilia, like capes and boots and stuff like that. So they probably got a decent income off that, just selling off his stuff, because of the way he died. It was probably worth a lot more money. But probably, and I want to end on this note because I think this is really important and something that I really, really appreciated, is that his daughter says she forgives him for what he did. That is such a rare thing. I really can't remember hearing a daughter who said, like, I was 6 years old when my dad was doing like illegal stuff to support us, and it got him killed, and I'm not angry about it. I forgive him for doing that, because yes, it's easy to say that this guy should have been able to go out and find new skills, and the old Braun Strowman comment that you need to go out and learn something new and take chances to do something different, to pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. That's easy to say, and I still believe that. But when you couple that missing income with the mentality of you're supposed to be the head of the household, the protector, the sole provider, and all this type of stuff, you are kind of pushed into things that you might not want to do. And if your talent has always been physical. Like there are mental guys, heart guys, and body guys, right? There are some guys who can make a lot of money off their mind. You know, your writers, your professors. You have guys who work with their body, their hands, your mechanics, and your pro wrestlers. You got your heart guys, your artists, your writers. You know, who can, and sometimes those guys can't do anything different. You know, and Dino Bravo seemed to be a guy who was good with his hands. He was a strong guy, and it was just a natural fit for him to go from slamming people in the ring for money to slamming people in the street for money. And then, you know, you just go from there. You know, you're a strong guy. You can push your way through life, and it's pretty easy to do that. And so I thought that really was meaningful to me. Even though I don't have kids, it was really meaningful to me that his daughter actually forgave him for for this, because I think it's really important. You know, and some people would say, like, well, why would she need to? It's like, well, he was old enough to know better, that he was bootlegging cigarettes and having the wrong kind of people in the house around his family and stuff like that. And it really could have gotten bad if those guys, which is another reason why I think it was the mob, because they didn't take the wife and the kids too. They probably waited for them to leave. But it's really tough. It was really tough, and I'm glad that his daughter appreciated at least that he tried. And that, yes, he screwed up, but he didn't screw up because he was being selfish. He screwed up because he was trying to figure out a way to take care of his family. And that meant something to me personally as a viewer. So what did you guys think of the documentary? Did you like it? I think that there was definitely a scant on details. I would have liked a lot more detail, but there's not much you can do other than, talk about, him getting shot in the head and left dead in his living room. They don't have any idea who did it, and anything else is just speculation. So what do you think? What do you guys think of this video? Like, share, and subscribe. Please leave a comment. Let me know what's up, and I'll talk to you guys later.